Hey, Pepin.
Yeah, what's up, Steve?
I want to talk about space.
Oh, like what about space? Like how big it is, whether we're alone, why we are here in space. Like,
Yes.
oh, well, I guess we'll need to talk.
Like y'all are probably very used to working in R2, which is the coordinate system space.
So what was that again, G?
Oh, there's a lot of space in math. We talk about what space we're looking at, right? So the one most people are probably familiar with is R2, which is the coordinate system. And we consider that a space.
Is this like a geometrical kind of space?
Just geometrical, yeah. I think topological is the more appropriate term.
Is that like graphs?
Yeah. But one in the coordinate system graphs that we're used to.
Like a three-dimensional coordination?
Well, that's a different space, right? You have R2 space, R3 space, R4 space, right? This is how we can calculate stuff in dimensions we can't even visualize.
So these are conceptual spaces in a way, but they're describing actual spaces.
Yeah. And you shrink it back down, you can describe spaces that you see like 2 dimensions and whatnot.
That was not what I was talking about.
Oh.
That's way more interesting.
So with Euclidean space and...
Oh my god, with the Euclides.
What's the... it's not Myers-Briggs. What's the space that they came up with the special relativity?
Einstein's?
Yeah. It's
Myers-Briggs is the personality test, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm thinking Minkowski space or something like that.
Finally, we talk about something
I
management.
don't know many physics.
Oh, anyway, so the topic today is space.
In all forms possible. Space bar.
Space balls.
Outer space.
The spaces between these sentences.
Wow. You just broke time.
Not again.
So, I mean, the main focus that I was thinking was something more along the lines of like outer space, if the planets, other galaxies, alien.
I mean, to kick this off, space is fucking huge. I mean, we think just about, the space from here to the sun, and that's enormous. Then we start thinking about the space from here to another galaxy. That's enormous. Then we think about the space that contains our galaxy. That's we can't even fathom that.
Are any of these distances even fathomable given our context?
No. But
we have no context to compare it to.
Yeah. Then we see galaxies, rolling around galaxies,
of winning the lottery,
super galaxies.
I feel like we just have the same conversation every week.
So there's this space is just massive, and I don't even think we can comprehend it.
Right.
And of course, space goes little as well to the Planck scale, and we can't even comprehend that either.
So what can we comprehend
About space?
about anything?
Well, plenty.
Well, we can come to some conclusions like if space is expanding and infinite, then is that not to say that all like there's nothing that wouldn't be possible within it?
So is this the kind of claim that if space is infinite, then any possible kind of thing within that space is there?
Yeah, I mean, like we can take it to even something as simple as aliens. Like we can't be the only life like out there. If there has to be other forms of life if space is infinite.
And the argument would be it'd be like. So we're all familiar with the whole monkeys writing randomly on a keyboard, eventually producing Shakespeare.
Yes.
Is that the basic argument? There's a probabilistic argument.
Yes.
Okay.
Numbers. I think that you could say that if infinity is like incomprehensible. So because of that, like all possible outcomes are possible.
Right. And
All the impossible outcomes are possible in infinity.
G, would you agree with this statement?
I'm having a hard time coming up with anything to say against it.
Maybe we should get a little more laser focused than infinity, because that's probably a little too broad to really make any claims against.
It's important to talk about with space, though.
Well, so to take this to a level of, let's say there is infinite space, right? And we're within that space. We could just be a part of that space which is comprehensible. Are things comprehensible? Yes, but because in this random clutter of shit that's not comprehensible, there's bound to be a part which is comprehensible, and we're that small little part of infinity.
That's deep.
I guess so.
That's wormhole deep. Now, does anybody else find space words dirty?
Space words?
Space words like black hole? Like that's about a butt.
I mean, there are things that are defined about space, right, that we could say won't happen. I'm thinking about the infinity again. I'm sorry.
Like, what do you mean exactly?
Right, like we've developed, like we were talking about theory of relativity earlier, and we know celestial bodies are going to move and how they're going to move and according to what laws, and we don't suppose that to change.
So the rules that govern physics are universal.
Yes,
But it would only take one instance in all of infinity of something different happening in order to completely turn those laws on their head.
Yeah, but they'd modify it. They'd say, here's a special case where it doesn't, and then other than that, keeps doing it.
Wow, so you're saying it's unbreakable.
I mean, science, I think that's like what's special about science is that it's always like, yeah, this can change. And when it does, we'll find out for what reason, but we'll still be able to say, for the most part, it doesn't.
Yeah. There's something that's annoying about quantum mechanics, for instance, is there's actually some probability that like anything can happen, right? So there's an example of, imagine a statue kind of like waving high to you, right?
A statue's waving?
How much LSD did you take?
2 taps. But, it's got its arm up in the air. And so it seems improbable, impractical that this arm would suddenly just go down like that, just kind of wave down. But there's actually some probability, quantum mechanically, that could happen. And there's actually a guy who calculated this out, and
Nerd.
It's yes, and it's like I think it's greater than the length of the universe for it to occur, but there's still some probability of it happening.
Yeah, I've heard like the same notion, like running into a wall, right? There's a slim possibility that you'll run right through it, right?
But it's never ever going to happen. But probabilistically, it could happen.
You'll probably just run up it and flip.
Yeah, do a sick wall flip followed by a gainer.
Yeah, use your free will.
What's a gainer anyway?
It's almost like standing corkscrew. You're like doing like you're like flipping at like a 45-degree angle through the air.
Oh,
it's not like a full front flip. It's like you're spinning horizontally and vertically at the same time.
that's probably pretty easy to do in space.
Yeah, you might be slow.
It might be hard to actually like get it started.
Well, I don't know, because
Stop.
there's nothing, you have to push some, dancing and kind of that kind of stuff is based off pushing off stuff. And in space, it's kind of hard to push off something without going in that direction.
Can't you push off the beat?
Push off the beat?
Just push off the beat.
Are we talking like musically?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could.
I was actually talking about like growing a garden.
Yes.
I mean, you can probably change your trajectory a little bit, right? Like if you punch yourself in the side.
What would an alien look like?
Like a human, but with a really big head. Maybe less fingers or something.
You're like the thing on top of your neck?
Yeah. No, and at the end of your penis.
So I think your question about aliens is, there's one question about whether aliens exist, right? And there could be aliens, plenty of aliens that exist even in the galaxy. But the other question is, if they exist, are they intelligent? So we might find that there's alien life, say, on, let's say, solar system close to us. But that alien life may be
Primitive.
Never.
Bacteria.
Yeah, bacteria. And it could have no means of actually communicating with us. And, most alien life we'd assume would be more primitive. We're probably one of the few exceptions of alien life which is not primitive.
So the question isn't, or maybe a better question is not whether alien life exists or not, because that I would guess a high probability on simple organisms, but probability of sentient life. Little throwback stuff that we consider to have consciousness.
Yeah.
God.
Life would be considered of, be able to communicate with us in a rational kind of way.
Do aliens believe in God?
Some probably.
Wow.
I mean, it's kind of a logical thing, right?
But do they follow the Bible?
No,
Heathens. These are heathen aliens.
completely. So,
Do aliens go to hell?
hell doesn't exist.
You just blew my mind.
What?
How did you go there?
Well, I can't go to a non-existent place,
Yeah, you can.
Well, if the universe is infinite, anything's possible.
except for hell and heaven and God.
What if those are more abstract concepts?
Go on.
So what if it's not, a literal place of burning fire, but rather like a
Like it burns when you pee.
yeah, like what if
That's
it's like
hell.
that's pretty much hell.
Well, so is the argument there that we have these abstractions of, say, suffering or extreme suffering? We know what that is, right? And we take that and we just put it in this kind of ultimate demon concept or, amalgamation, just called suffering or total suffering or just annihilation or something like that.
I mean, okay, so if a God exists, then there's no feasible way that we could ever conceptualize it. Whatever it is. So when I think of God, I don't think of it like a physical being, a man with a white beard looking from the clouds. I think of it more along the lines of like something that there's no possible way that I could ever conceive that has some sort of bearing over our life. Maybe not on the minute details section, but on the way of originally setting the ball in motion. And there's no way that we could ever conceptualize it. So
Does it even matter if it comes down to that?
that's an absolutely great question.
Yeah, I mean, I think some older thinkers thought of like God as like the clockmaker, right?
Yeah,
the founding fathers.
Did they think of him like
Yeah,
that?
they're all deists.
I mean, I wouldn't say like the God this in this instance, in my version of God, it's more like a spiritual thing where it's like God, you just add another O to it. It's good and evil. Like there's right and there's wrong. There's things that feel right and there's things that feel wrong. And in that sense, God lives and God exists everywhere because whether things are right or wrong.
So this is very complex to dissect here. Because are you talking about reality? Is there something in reality which is good, or are we talking about within our own brains? And this is something we're feeling, psychologically.
Both. I'm talking about in your heart, you feel that there are things that are right and there are things that are wrong, and they feel right or wrong. So that can come down to chemical reactions, like anything can be broken down to. But outside of that, there's a greater picture that we have such a small, tiny little bit of, but even if we're a 1,000th of a percent of the driving force that brings something either to the positive or to the negative, compounded, it matters. So maybe we don't matter as an individual, but conceptually all of us matter because there is a driving force forward, because we're conscious beings and we have the choice.
Gee, what do you say to that?
To me, I would say like right and wrong or good and evil is just a mix of social and biological conditioning.
Yeah. I think we have three different kind of views on this, because my view is that concepts are non-existent, that they don't exist in reality. Now, we can talk about them in their relation to reality. Like, we talk about a map, and the map has some relation to, say, the layouts of the streets and, what's the topological kind of, land. But the map is not the reality. This map is not the place. In some way, I don't think concepts exist in reality.
The map is not the place, but it represents the place. And if you want to get from point A to point B and you use the map, you can do so. And the place does exist. And the map does exist. And when you work with them together, then you can achieve something in both planes.
And in this metaphor, what would be the map in, say, connection to God or goodness or what you're talking about?
Your heart, like spiritual guidance, like being connected with both yourself and with the universe as a whole.
How do you guarantee that that's not a social or biological influence and that it is some sort of external force acting on your, well, I guess what we would call this intuition?
I'm sure that there are biological and social things that play into it. Like biologically, you can have somebody who is mentally deficient in some way, and it prevents them from being able to connect in that way. And that obviously plays a huge role in their ability to drive towards doing positive things versus doing negative things on whatever this scale is, this grander scale is that we might not even be able to conceptualize.
So the grander scale, let me tell me if I'm getting this right. So someone who is, say, mentally deficient would be unable to distinguish what is, say, good or bad on this grand scale because they wouldn't have the cognitive faculties to do so, right? But we have that faculty, that brain, the big brains to do that. So we're able to distinguish between good and bad on this, on this, what do you call it, like an essence or
metaphysical?
Yeah, metaphysical essence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do we contact or how do we interact with this metaphysical essence?
We don't. We let it interact with us.
So this is what I'm saying is that there could be this metaphysical interaction, right? But how can you ensure that it's a metaphysical interaction and it's not coming from somewhere within?
It is coming from within.
Well, so to give an example, let's say imagine someone's having a vision. I mean, this is probably not what you're talking about, right? But this is a similar idea. Imagine someone's having a vision of, say, Jesus, and Jesus tells them to do something. Now, someone who is, say, highly Christian might say that vision is correct because Jesus, came down and, told him to do X, Y, Z. But someone who might be skeptical might say, well, how do we know that vision's not, say, from a crazy LSD trip or, say, from a lack of sleep or psychosis or something like that? So what are the ways of distinguishing between kind of those two things?
You should always be skeptical of everything, especially when it comes to something spiritual. So if I see Jesus and he tells me to do something, I'm going to be skeptical of that, and I'm going to say, I'm going to ask myself, and I'm going to, if I have any doubt that this is like a true experience, and obviously I would, if I had that experience, I would say, okay, so there must be something mentally wrong with me, while this may be something that really is positive, and the message might have been something I should follow. the method that I got it in is screwed up, and it's not. It's unnatural in general, and at that point, I would seek medical assistance on the hallucinations. But I might still be able to take what the hallucinations gave me as information to heart and be able to work that into my life in some way.
And you talked about a method there, like a method of kind of. So is that method consistent? Like, what would be the method exactly of determining if these hallucinations like need medical treatment or if you're actually kind of like say divine?
I don't know, just CAT scan, like whatever. I would assume that I would assume that it's not a divine intervention in some way where like, oh, God contacted me directly, that seems ridiculous. But that doesn't mean that there's not good that you can pull from it at the same time.
But it's kind of saying you could pull good from anything.
Absolutely.
Which,
and you should try to.
Like, that doesn't quite relate to the concept, though. I mean, it's not necessarily a proof or disproof of, say, there being a metaphysical essence.
Because there is no proof. It's not about proof. So science cares about proof and facts and driving forward with things that can be proven, and you can use math on it, things like that. But there are things in this world that math does not apply to.
Yeah, I agree with that.
See, he's a math major, but so that means I'm right.
Oh, I mean, I love the arts. But in matters of statements, right, it's almost like now it just comes down to like, well, this could be or it couldn't be, and there's almost nowhere to go, I feel.
Gideon, you said you took some philosophy courses, right?
Yeah.
And you're aware of, like, say, Platonism versus Aristotelianism?
I mean, I'm aware of them both, Plato and Aristotle.
I'm aware they exist. I'm not super versed.
I know like some parts. What parts are you specifically referring to?
So this kind of sounds similar to Plato said there was a world of perfect forms that was divine and kind of out there, and the philosopher was a person who had the ability to reach into or kind of see this perfect world of forms and to draw information from that world. And he went in with, I think, a bit extreme in my opinion, where he said there's a perfect chair and a perfect bottle of hot sauce or a perfect X, Y, and Z. But the basic idea is, we never see a perfect circle in reality, but we have the idea of a perfect circle in our head. So how do we get that idea from our head? And Plato said we get the idea because before we're born, we see this kind of perfect circle in our heads. We can see it in this perfect realm. And I think he argued that's where kind of God was, because God is perfect. So does that relate to this at all?
Not really. It's definitely an interesting, thought experiment. And I'm pretty familiar with that as far as Plato goes. But it's not on the same plane as what I'm talking about.
So how is it different exactly? Like, to just tease out some of the differences for clarity.
Perfection doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about like trying to be perfect. It's just about trying to be better than you are and to continue to do so. So, you like everybody's going to make mistakes but it's about looking back at that and being able to be critical with yourself and being able to ask questions and to be curious. Like, that's your responsibility, is to be curious and to continue to want to understand that which we'll never understand.
So the conscious responsibility is a key aspect to it. So someone, because the ability to reflect is kind of like a conscious kind of thing. And, you have to kind of use reason a bit to kind of figure out, was this a bad thing? Was this a good thing? So that's an aspect of it.
Yeah, it's definitely an aspect of it. I mean, it's fairly common, like especially in the Jewish religion, to continue to question and to continue to Like it's not about full on belief in God. It's about digging into what do I believe, and to want to do positive things, and keep questioning. Keep questioning, what do I believe? What is the truth?
I mean, that's something that's, for me personally, what was very appealing about mathematics is there's so much in philosophy where, you know, lines are blurred, etc. And math is sort of a bearing in reality. That's something I know is very, very grounded. Something that's you know, when you're doing math, right, you want to be hypercritical of your work. You want to scrutinize it to as much as you possibly can. Whereas sometimes with like philosophical questions like this, metaphysics, forms, God, that's sort of, you can almost like run in circles, and there's no sort of I want to say logical axioms to follow, right? There isn't really like, you can, sometimes you just can't poke holes in it, right? You can't just say, oh, this is where it went wrong. But then, you know, like the questioning what you believe in and stuff, I think that's like human nature, right? You all want to know why we're here. And
I mean, this is the thing that gets me about, say, Descartes, and his question of, you know, could you be a demon, not a demon in a jar, a brain in a jar, or could there be a demon tricking you at every instant? Well, you have to ask, you know, could that demon have a demon who's tricking him? And could that demon who's tricking him have the demon who's tricking him? And so on and so forth, like infinite regression.
It's almost nihilistic.
And that's where I think a lot of these questions get, you know, kind of go haywire. You know, the question of God. If God has created the universe, then what created God? You know, and then there's a Hindu statement, which is, I think it's something similar to the world is held on the back of a llama. I'm going to butcher this. And that llama is on the back of a giraffe, and that giraffe is on the back of a turtle. And that's what holds up the world. And the question is, well, okay, what's below the turtle? No, it's turtles all the way down.
Yeah, I've heard this one.
So it sounds like an answer, but it's not quite. And with these kind of questions, you can kind of go in so many different directions, in so many different kind of ways, and not arrive at a satisfying conclusion, or not as satisfying as, say, a mathematical proof, or say E equals mc squared, which is, you know, proven not mathematically, empirically through science.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely not any ground to stand on. There's nothing, like, there's no facts that you can stand your feet on. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't still think about it, and you shouldn't still ask questions.
Of course not. I mean, that's why art is so beautiful.
Now, would you say that makes you feel vulnerable or not vulnerable?
Both, for sure.
That's a very confusing answer.
Well,
I think that's the beautiful part of being alive.
Of course it makes you feel vulnerable, because you don't know if anything that you're thinking is true or false. But that's the whole point of asking the question in the first place, is to make yourself vulnerable. And when you've made yourself vulnerable, and you know that you're vulnerable, in a way that makes you invulnerable. Because you know you're vulnerable. So, like, what do you have to be vulnerable about?
It's kind of I like that, 'cause it's kind of a paradoxical, but it also makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. It's a lot of like circular logic, but at the same time, it can really keep you grounded in something that doesn't have a ground.
Yeah, this topic's been pretty heavy, honestly. I mean, went from space into pretty deep stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely an important topic. I don't really talk about the fact that I have religious tendencies within myself very much, because when most people hear religion, they get really turned off and they get really angry, and they think that I'm stupid. And it's not about like organized religion and everybody praying together in a fixed place at a certain time of day, because that's when a specific and being that's beyond my grasp is listening, but more about internal reflection on the world, how I affect the world, how I affect others, and what my effect is overall on everything that exists. And while it may be minimal in my own personal scale, on a grand scale, if everybody thought in a similar manner, if everybody acted in a similar manner, it would have such a huge difference. So it's my responsibility to take that into consideration, because 0.00001 magnified is worth so much.
But what social or biological influences might be in play that would prevent someone else from thinking the very same way?
Well, one of the ones he pointed out earlier was, say, retardation, cognitive, inability, ineptness might prevent that, because some reason, some kind of cognitive faculty are needed to kind of, discover what's right and wrong,
And I argue that makes my influence so much more meaningful, because I have the ability to reason. Therefore, it's my responsibility to use that, because other people aren't going to. And you could say I need to offset those that aren't going to, or will choose not to, or whatever.
I mean, I think from my own personal view, I see the metaphorical importance of the spirit. But with all the knowledge and culture and biology, etc., in my mind, I don't see any need for the supposition of God. But the metaphorical spirit, I don't believe in this actual metaphysical spirit to exist, but there's no better way to represent artistic side of myself. It's a very useful metaphor, how I visualize the world and take in beauty, etc.
God to me is the one. So everything's connected, all together, and that's God. God isn't an entity in any sense. It's the fact that everything exists. That's God.
So why isn't that science, right? I've the more science and math I've studied, the more connected I feel on that spiritual in quotes level, where we all come from the same stardust. We're all made up of the same molecules, more or less.
There's no reason why.
There's no that's such a physical connection, and the metaphorical comes easily from
There's
that.
no reason why science and God can't be married like they used to be.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that it's not. I don't see the need to distinguish some sort of omnipotent force in that it already is, and there are tangible things to be secure in those feelings.
So just to draw this to a point about, because this is a little complex of an argument here.
Oh, definitely. I would not use the word argument, but go on. I would use conversation.
Conversation, because Einstein was, I can't think of the word now, but he believed that the universe is God, and that's similar to what G is saying right now. Pantheism, yeah. He was a pantheist, so he believed that the universe was God, and this was kind of a metaphorical position, but he also, believed that there was something just crazy, awesome, amazing. Like, he's quoted as saying, the most amazing thing is that the universe is comprehensible. Now, I think what Steve is saying is a bit more than pantheism. Is that correct? It's not just that the universe is God, but there's something within the universe which is, say, good or bad.
Of course.
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I like to think that there is a force, and there are obviously forces at play every single day. Is there an ultimate force one way or the other? inconceivable. I would say that that's not a part of my belief system, but that I am a force in myself, and that I want to use that force in a way that's going to be other people will consider positive as much as I will. Something that's going to be better for all things.
Okay, and I think we're going to draw this podcast to a close, but just to make sure. So we were asking you questions there about your beliefs and all of it stuff, but you didn't feel like we were being, say, forceful or kind of dismissive at all, did you?
No, and I mean, the beautiful thing about talking about, your belief system is that, like, even though I've thought about my own beliefs to such an extent, like I was raised in a Christian household, and my father's side was Christian. We went to church, Baptist and all of that. And my mom's side, she's Wiccan. So like, she's a witch. So like, they're the most at odds ideas all together. And I asked my dad, do you believe everything in the Bible? And he's like, yes. I'm like, word for word, like, you believe he was swallowed by a whale, even though that's physically impossible? He's like, if it's in the Bible, it's true. And I'm like, Mom, why do you believe in Wiccanism? Why do you believe in a god and a goddess and then an ultimate? And she's like, I don't know. It's just what I believe in. I'm like, okay, well, neither of you have good viewpoints. Neither of you have really thought about this. You just chose a word and said, that's what I am.
It's comfortable, right?
Right. And to me, that my religion is being in discomfort. That's the beauty of religion, is you shouldn't be comfortable in your religion, because if once you're comfortable, you've stopped asking questions.
That's why I like it as a metaphor. I never, there's few assumptions I'll take. But even then, like, the assumptions I do take are only the senses that I've been given. And thought isn't strictly a sense, right? So having questions thrown at me and trying to dig into it is positive.
It's positive in like such a great way, because I don't like, I have these beliefs, but I don't have them fully fleshed out. And having people to talk with and bounce the ideas off who actually listen and care is way, way more like of an amazing positive thing than it could ever be negative.
Yeah, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you probably wouldn't call it religion, because it's not like a practicing kind of thing, but your belief is more focused primarily, or not primarily, but a lot in reason. There's a lot of rationality to it, because they're trying to understand the complexities and the ideas and everything to it.
Avoiding dogma.
I definitely call it religion, but I don't call it religion the same way that most people call it religion, where it's like a formate, like a group of people. I don't need other people to practice my religion. Do I think that getting groups of people together who all believe in the same force is positive, can be positive or negative, or cause that force to multiply? Absolutely. It's powerful. It can be an amazing, great thing, but I don't need it in order to have my religion exist in my heart.